Hello Raptors fans and welcome back to Raptors Report. Today we'll be discussing the Toronto Raptors game against the Detroit Pistons, but before we do that, we gotta talk about Ja'Kobe Walter. Ja'Kobe Walter is really coming on lately and I'm super excited, super jazzed and pumped to talk about him. And even though, I have been focusing a lot on the draft recently, I think it's time to take a break and talk about what I'm seeing on the floor and maybe do a more comprehensive analysis on one of the most exciting players for the Toronto Raptors. And that is their super rookie, the guy who has really emerged this year, their first round pick, and shown some serious promise. So I want to break down what I've seen from him, both qualitatively and quantitatively. So we're going to be looking at some of the stats, and I will try to interpret them and give you my thoughts on what I'm seeing from Ja'Kobe Walter. So why don't we jump in and take a look? So first of all, why don't we take a look at the splits? Because I think that there is a good split here in the season in terms of what we saw pre and post All-Star break. So pre All-Star break, Ja'Kobe Walter was kind of struggling on the offensive end, and post All-Star break, he's taken a leap. So let's look at those stats pretty quickly. First of all, pre All-Star break, Ja'Kobe Walter was averaging just under 20 minutes per game and was scoring 7.7 points per game, had 2.5 rebounds per game, and 1.4 assists per game in, just under 20 minutes, with shooting splits of 40% from the field, 31% from the three-point line, and 70% from the free throw stripe. And just right off the bat, the most glaring thing there are the shooting percentages. The field goal percentage is low. The three-point percentage is also low. Ja'Kobe Walter is a shooter for the most part. He shoots approximately half of his shots overall from the three-point arc, about 3.5 three-point attempts per game and about 4 attempts inside of the arc. So relatively balanced there. So if you have a low three-point percentage, that's going to pretty drastically reduce your field goal percentage. In terms of his overall true shooting percentage, prior to the All-Star break, he was around 50% true shooting percentage, which is low. That is not good. Post All-Star break is a different story. So let's get into that. He is averaging over 25 minutes per game, and this is easy to explain. So prior to the All-Star break, the Toronto Raptors had a bunch of veterans, and his return to the lineup, because he was injured for the first portion of the season, his return to the lineup coincided with the return to the lineup of a lot of the veterans, including Bruce Brown. And Bruce Brown plays a similar position, pretty much the same position as Ja'Kobe Walter. He is a bench off-ball wing guard, and so he had to split time with Bruce Brown. Since Bruce Brown has been traded post All-Star break, Ja'Kobe Walter has seen a minutes bump, and he has gone from that 19, just under 20 minutes per game to 25 minutes per game. And I think that that has grown his confidence pretty substantially. I think that he is feeling more comfortable. He's not looking over his shoulder, and the results have been tangible. He is averaging 11 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, and almost 2 assists per game. And those are good numbers. The 2 assists per game, very respectable for an off-ball guard. He doesn't get to handle too much, but in the Toronto Raptors system, passing is a priority. You need to be a pretty good passer. You need to be able to find players who are open, so that's good to see. So his shooting splits are looking very nice. His field goal percentage went down slightly, so he's not finishing inside as well. So he's 40.4% post All-Star break compared to 40.6% pre All-Star break. So, that's not great, but the three-point percentage is where he is really shining, and he's averaging 42.6% from 3 on 4 attempts per game, which is great. That is very good. A plus 40% three-point shooter is a very valuable commodity, even when it isn't attached to great defense. And as we've seen, he is actually playing great defense. So this is all very encouraging. The free throw percentage is also way up, 93%, and he is shooting more free throws. In fact, his free throw rate has gone up, even though his usage has gone down slightly. So that's very exciting. The uptick in his three-point shooting has resulted in him becoming more efficient. So rather than being around a 50% true shooting player prior to the All-Star break, he is now 55% true shooting percentage player, which isn't fantastic. I'm not going to lie to you, but it is much better. And the reason for this is because of his uptick in his above the break 3-point shooting percentage. Above the break 3-point shots are very valuable for an NBA offense. They are much more easy to generate than corner 3-point shots. The corner 3 is closer and it's easier to recover to when you are in the paint. The above the break 3 is a little bit further out. And also teams are way more cognizant of closing out to the corners. That is part of the game plan. They want to take away that shot. Above the break is a shot that's still relatively efficient, but teams are more willing to give that up than the corner 3-point shot. So it is more available. And he's gone from 32% on that shot, the above the break 3-point percentage, on around 2.2 attempts per game prior to the All-Star break. Now he's shooting more, around 3 attempts of that type of shot, and he's shooting 46% from that. And do I think that's sustainable over a larger sample size? I'm going to say probably not. 46% above the break 3-point percentage is, Steph Curry territory. That is, I don't think, sustainable, but it is a good sign. And it indicates an upward trend. Now let's talk about the defense, because the defense is very, very exciting for me, and I think for most Raptors fans. When you watch him and Jamal Shed really getting into and getting up on players, it is very exciting. I think the amount of harassment that he and Jamal Shed are able to put on ball handlers, on guards and ball handling wings is, really nice to see. It looks like he's being very disruptive out there, and he seems to be able to stick with players around screens and move his feet and not give open driving lanes into the paint, which is very nice to see. Unfortunately, when you dig into the advanced stats, they say that he's not as disruptive as what I'm seeing on the floor. So the number of deflections that he has are pretty pedestrian. And also kind of on the low side in terms of per 36 minutes. It's a little on the low side. I was actually surprised. I thought he would be a lot more disruptive in terms of that. And also the shot contests are a little lower. I think that one of maybe the reasons that you don't see that is because when he's guarding a player, he's able to stay with them and make them give the ball up. So I think that is generally what we're seeing here. I don't think it's necessarily all about the statistics. I am seeing something completely different than what the advanced stats are telling me. And I think that if you were to give him more runway and more of a larger sample size with the stuff that he's doing on the defensive end, you'd start to see those advanced stats start to catch up to the eye test. But that was interesting. I wanted to share that with you. In terms of the other stuff, so the shooting is very encouraging. I want to say that there is something that I want to see develop from him as he gets better, and in the off season, which is rapidly approaching, there are things that he needs to work on. The first thing that is apparent is that his ball handling needs to be improved. It is still raw. He doesn't have, I would say, counter moves when the opposing player is able to stick with him on drives. He doesn't have a ton of wiggle. He doesn't really have the ability to cross players over and change direction. His footwork and ball handling ability in order to level up from being a straight line driver, because that's what he is at the moment. I think that's going to add a huge element to his game. In college, we saw that he drew free throws at a good rate because he doesn't shy away from contact. He goes into the contact, and he has a little herky-jerky movement when he gets inside. He's able to get people to bite on pump fakes. He's pretty crafty that way, but it's all about getting from point A to point B, point A being the perimeter, point B being the inside. That is generally where you want to get as a ball handler. He needs to be able to bridge that gap, get between the perimeter and the interior with the ball in his hands. That's what I want to see him get better at. I think that what he's doing in the offense is picking his spots better. He is more confident, and he is getting himself open and making himself available. And another thing is that I think that his shot quality has gone up. I think that Immanuel Quickley returning to the lineup and the synergy between him and Immanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl in that pick and roll play has been very beneficial for him. I think that he has been one of the main beneficiaries of that. And I'll get into the statistics about that because there is some evidence to back that up. I just think in general, everything stems from his confidence and where he is being put in a position to succeed and get better. I really feel like he is leveling up and feeling himself a lot more these days, which has helped him in all aspects of his game. So let's get into the statistics. I just mentioned that he is playing very well with Immanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl. And my hypothesis is that the Immanuel Quickley-Jakob Poeltl pick and roll is a very fruitful play for the Toronto Raptors. The two of them, Jakob Poeltl being the best screen setter, and Immanuel Quickley being the best screen user for the Toronto Raptors. Those two players, when they play alongside of one another, create a pick-your-poison dilemma for opposing teams. And pick and rolls are very complex. There are many ways to run it. There are many ways that teams use it in different ways almost every time down the floor. There are different circumstances, there are different coverages, all of that sort of thing. I'm not going to get too far in depth on it, but one of the ways that other teams will try and blow up that play is by adding extra defenders, adding extra help. And in those circumstances, and a lot of the time you're trying to protect the paint, one of the key ways of doing that is by collapsing, getting inside. Teams like to do that against teams that maybe aren't as good shooting teams. Ja'Kobe Walter has been punishing that type of coverage, and he is doing it by getting himself open, and Immanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl are obviously good playmakers. They're able to find him on the perimeter where he can take shots and make them. And when you look at the lineup data, this is very apparent. So two of the players that he plays the best alongside in the two-man units are both Jakob Poeltl and Immanuel Quickley. The three-man units ditto, him and Scotty Barnes, and even him and RJ Barrett have some positive synergy going, although it's not as dominant as you see with the lineup data suggesting his synergy with Immanuel Quickley and Jakob Poeltl. But it's not really that surprising. I mean, there is my hypothesis. I think it's true. I'm not able to prove it, but that's what I'm kind of seeing. However, role players, which is what he is an off-ball player that plays off of other players, generally tend to play better when they're playing alongside good players that are able to draw attention. And so playing alongside good players, or the rising tide floats all boats there. So it's not a huge surprise that when he plays next to better players, he plays better. But I wanted to point that out. I think there is a correlation between the two. And this sort of points out what he is doing on the court, what he is doing on offense. He is playing mostly as an off-ball player. Over 70% of his shots, almost, closer to 80% of his shots are assisted on. He is not really handling the ball and creating for himself. He is playing off of other players, picking his spots, shooting open jump shots, coming off of screens and catching and shooting. That is one of the things that he has actually been pretty good at. So let's get into that. Coming off of screens and using dribble handoffs, those two plays, he is in the plus 75th percentile. He doesn't use them a ton. Those two plays, when combined together, about 10% of his offense, so it might be a little bit of a small sample size, but it's worth pointing out that those two types of plays, which don't involve a ton of dribbling, are the ones where he is being an efficient player. He needs to, the spot-up shots you would expect would be a higher percentage shot for him, and those are a little below average. I think that if you were to give him a full season, and if he were to perform like he's performing right now, you would see those percentages like way, way higher. So, but I thought I'd point that out. I think that what this boils down to, and what I want to see from him moving forward, is again talking about the ball handling, the self-creation, adding that element to his game so that he can take more shots, would be something that I would want him to work on this offseason. And when it's not about the stats, when it's about the feeling, and when it's about what you're seeing, what you're watching during the game as a fan, but also like as kind of trying to scout him a little bit, it's very exciting. I think it portends well when you watch it, like the that boy nice factor, especially the past couple of games. He has looked immense. He has been getting it done on both sides of the ball. The defense is almost more exciting than the offense is. And I feel like the advanced stats I mentioned, like the hustle stats, the deflections, the shot contests, loose ball recovery, steals, all that sort of stuff, I think that's going to catch up to the eye test, what I'm seeing right now. If he's able to play for this way for a full season, I think you're going to see this guy really just start to shine, both, in terms of the stats and also just from the eye test. I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing. I think the sky's the limit for this guy. I think that he could be a really impactful two-way player. I'm just so excited watching him play. It's one of the main reasons to turn on a Raptors game these days, is seeing the play of himself and Jamal Shed And Jonathan Mobo even, he has emerged as well. But I thought I'd focus mainly on Jacoby Walter because I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing, and I think it portends well for the Toronto Raptors' future that has the chance to grow into a really solid, maybe even star player for them. I see that kind of upside with him. In terms of his shot, I just wanted to mention that there is something that he can do as well alongside the ball handling, and I think his shot looks consistent, and he has a nice follow-through, but I think that there are things that he can do to improve there. I think that speeding up his shot, and I think being more shot ready when he gets the ball is the next step for his shot. I think that he can speed up his delivery, because right now he has a gather where it takes him a moment before he's able to get into his shot. And I think also he might want to get a bit more elevation on his jump shot. I think that he has, good athleticism. I think that he can get a little bit higher, put his shot a little bit more out of reach and more difficult to be bothered by other defenders, because I think that the release point is nice and high on his shot. The follow-through indicates that he's at maximum extension. It's nice and high. If you were to able to add a little bit more elevation just with his legs, it could be just a very difficult shot to guard. So that's one element that I think that he could improve upon outside of the ball handling. Other than that, I am really enjoying what I'm seeing. So I thought that I would give you that scouting report because this guy is really showing some stuff. And with that said, I think that will go pretty nicely into the next section, which we're going to get into very shortly, which is the game that the Toronto Raptors played against the Detroit Pistons last night. So why don't we get into the player evaluations, and we can talk about what I saw from this game. So right off the bat, the most impressive player in this game was the player we were just talking about, Jacoby Walter. Let's get into the stats here. He had 22 points on 8 of 14 shooting. He was 4 of 7 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw line. So his shooting has continued to be one of the strongest elements of his game. His ability to catch and shoot, come off of screens and shoot. I am enjoying what I'm watching. He had 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals. So he was so disruptive on defense. 0 blocks, 2 turnovers. He is really getting up into guys and forcing turnovers. He's really making it difficult for players to get across the half-court line and initiate the offense. He is sticking like glue around screens. The screen navigation has been excellent. The foot speed has been very good. I was just very happy with what I saw from him last night. He had some plays where it was like I was getting hype. I was getting so excited. He would create a turnover and then score immediately. He was nailing 3-point shots. It was kind of that moment where you sit up and take notice as a fan, where you get the goosebumps from watching a player scratch the surface of that potential and show you what could be lurking underneath. That's what I saw from Jacoby Walter last night. I'm sure that if you watch the game or even watch the highlights, you will get that same feeling. So if you haven't watched this game, go watch those Jacoby Walter highlights. It was just really exciting. We've already spoken about him at length and what he's able to do, so why don't we move to the next player who I thought, had an uneven but an okay game. I would say Emmanuel Quickley had a very uneven game, especially from a scoring perspective. He was not on with his shot last night. He had 14 points on 16 shots. He was 2 of 8 from 3, which was not very good. 2 of 2 from the free throw line. He had 8 rebounds. That's nice. 8 assists, also very nice. 1 steal and 2 turnovers. I thought his playmaking was good. When you're talking about an offense, the point guard's role is to put pressure on the defense through their scoring and make plays for their teammates as a result of the pressure that they're putting on. And Emmanuel Quickley, especially recently, has been able to show that fine balance where, you want to get your teammates involved, but you also want to put pressure on the defense. And he is trying to do both of those things. And I think that sometimes you're not going to be as successful in one of those categories. And last night it was the shot making and the scoring for himself, but I think that the other element was on display, which was the playmaking for others, the 8 assists. Jacoby Walter was paying off a lot of the plays that he was making, the pressure that he was putting on. He was getting Jacoby Walter good looks, and that can't be understated. So I think it was an okay game. After that, we'll go to, I guess, Jakob Poeltl. I think that Jakob Poeltl did a decent job on defense. He was moving his feet and cutting off penetration. He did have an issue guarding Jalen Duren. Jalen Duren, I think, had a massive game. 21 points, 18 rebounds. That is a pretty dominant stat line compared to what Jakob Poeltl had, which was 10 points on 5 of 11 shooting, 11 rebounds, although he did have 6 offensive rebounds compared to Jalen Duren's 4. He had 2 assists, 1 steal. He did have 3 blocks, but also 4 turnovers. Yeah, it's hard to say. Obviously, the goal for the center is not to play defense against the other center. It's to play defense against the entire opposing team. You are the primary help defender. So a lot of the time, Jakob Poeltl would come over and contest a shot, and then Jalen Duren would get an open basket. And that's not necessarily Jakob Poeltl's prerogative to stop Jalen Duren. He is trying to stop all plays going to the basket, and Jalen Duren is often shooting uncontested shots underneath. It's not as if Jalen Duren is executing this, multi-step post move where he's able to outfox Jakob Poeltl and then score around him. It's simply that he is benefiting from the Toronto Raptors helping. And so, the Raptors play very, aggressive defensive style. They like to get out and challenge players on the perimeter and create turnovers, and a lot of the time that can result in open shots around the rim. So there's a mitigating factor there, even though I don't think that Jakob Poeltl had a brilliant game. He in fact blocked Jalen Duren, I think, a couple of times. I remember one distinct one in the first quarter where he was able to stuff one of those shots. But not a fantastic game from Jakob Poeltl. He was missing quite a few shots around the rim. So next up, we'll go to Jonathan Mobo. I think that Jonathan Mobo had an underrated game because if you look at his stat line, it's not too impressive. 6 points on 7 shots. He was 0 of 1 from 3, 0 free throws, 0 for 0. He did have 8 rebounds, which is good. He did have 1 blocked shot and 1 turnover, but I like his aggressiveness. I think that he is coming on in terms of what he is supposed to be doing. He is really trying to get inside and dunk the ball. That's what I want to see. And he was blocked trying to dunk the ball, which is fine with me. I think that he should be trying to do that. And he had a really sick poster jam, and his defense was also good. I like what he delivers on the defensive end, and the rebounding is nice as well. I don't think it's one of his best games, but I think it was pretty positive just in terms of both sides of the court. I thought the process was good, even though the results maybe were a little underwhelming. Next up, we'll go to Jamison Battle. Jamison Battle played 23 minutes. He had 9 points on 3 of 5 shooting. He had 2 rebounds and 2 turnovers, no other stats. I am going to say that this was kind of a negative game, just based on his defense. I think his defense was poor. I think he was allowing a lot of blow-bys on the perimeter. The shooting was good. He is a good, consistent three-point shooter. He was 3 of 5 from 3. That's something that he is being asked to do, and he is delivering. For the most part this season, he has been the Toronto Raptors' most consistent and high percentage shooter from 3. So, he came last here, but he is kind of doing his job. He just didn't have a very good defensive night. Off of the bench, this one is super easy to pick. Jamal Shed, he might have been the best player on the Raptors, even with Jacoby Walter, because he had an incredible game in terms of playmaking. He had 14 points on 5 of 12 shooting, which is acceptable. He was 1 of 3 from 3, which is, okay. He was 3 of 4 from the free throw line with 1 rebound. He had 9 assists, and he passed Jose Calderon for second all-time in rookie assists from a Raptor. I know that's kind of a convoluted stat, but it just goes to show that he is a very talented playmaker, and he was doing everything from that standpoint. He can run the show, man. He is a guy that sees the floor really well and then has the touch and passing ability to make the plays that he needs to make. He is a true point guard. He is a real, honest-to-goodness point guard that makes plays for other people. 9 assists, 0 turnovers. Do you know how hard that is to make 9 real assists? These are not fake assists, passing the ball to players, open players, getting them a good shot without turning the ball over once. That's fantastic. He also had 2 steals. He is just a demon on defense. He is putting in max effort on that end and then managing to go down to the other end and, attacking the rim. That's how you create assists for your team, is by getting into the paint, usually using a screen. And they have two really good screeners on the team. Orlando Robinson's screens are very nice. Jakob Poeltl's screens are very nice. He uses both of those very well. He got into the paint and made plays for other players and just did a fantastic job. And then on defense, he is a mega pest. I love it. I love it.
I love it.
AJ Lawson had a fun game. I don't know how good of a game it was. He had a couple of nice steals and breakaways. He had a chase down block. That was sick, and then he followed it up with a 3. Wow, he is a bundle of energy. The stat line wasn't as kind. He had 9 points and 2 of 7 shooting. He was 1 of 4 from 3, but he did go to the line a bunch. He went there 6 times, made 4 free throws, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 2 blocks, 1 turnover. Really fun game from him. A couple other players played, but we'll stick with that. And the game was pretty exciting, especially in the first half. The Pistons are a very talented team. They're very deep. The front office did a good job of pivoting away from the tank and showing how it's done. You go down into the tank, pick up enough talent, and then emerge on the other side. You add in the veterans who can fill in the holes. Asar Thompson, good player. Jalen Duren, good player. And then you've got the veterans. I mean, Dennis Schroeder, I'm not a huge fan of him, but he is a minutes eater. He had an okay game. Did turn the ball over 5 times, so maybe not a great game. Malik Beasley, they found a guy who is a very streaky shooter, plays with a lot of energy. Tim Hardaway Jr., he had a really good shooting night. And then they've got some guys who can eat minutes off of the bench. And even though they were missing, their superstar, Cade Cunningham, they were able to get the job done. The Toronto Raptors, I don't think were giving max effort. They played Poeltl in quickly, 30 minutes in this game, but the Pistons were able to pull away and kind of pretty easily defeat the Raptors in the fourth quarter. Although the Raptors made a game of it, I'm not going to complain too much about the state of the game. I think there were some really exciting moments, and they were able to kind of make it a game at the end. But, the Detroit Pistons are a quality team, and they play good defense. They play the Nets tomorrow. It is a matinee game. It is at 3:30 tomorrow. So set your timers. Don't forget. That's what I'm going to do right after this episode. I'll just put it into my phone, make sure that I'm, not out doing something else when that game is on. I'm really excited because this game, if they're able to lose this game, then it's not completely out of the question that they end up with the 6th best odds. Obviously, the Brooklyn Nets would have to win a couple more outside of that game, but it's worth watching. And I just want to see more of the Toronto Raptors rookies. Mobo, Shed, Jacoby Walter, those guys are really exciting. And yeah, the season's starting to wind down, so enjoy these games, even though, maybe the season didn't work out the way you wanted to. In any case, that is the episode. Thank you for watching. Let me know how excited you are about Jacoby Walter. Do you think that this guy has real potential? Do you think maybe I'm overstating his case? Do you see him more as a solid starter? Do you see him as a star? Let me know here in the comments and also on Twitter and Blue Sky, where you can reach me at Raps Report. And if you haven't already, please slam the like button and also subscribe to the channel, because both of those things really help the algorithm know that this is content that other Raptors fans need to see. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.